Today we have a very special episode that will focus on purpose-driven culture as well as effective capital management to help drive organizational success. And we have two very distinguished guests I would like to introduce. Mr. Henry Stoever. He is the principal of the Brentwood Advisory Group, and Mark Sickles, the CEO of SuperOrg Inc. and chairman of the Chief Capital Officer Institute. So let's jump right in. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you very much for taking your time to join us today and approach this very, very interesting subject where we're going to talk about purpose, total capital management, and how technology and AI will filter into all of that. So to kick things off, I would like to ask Henry to give us an overview of purpose-driven organizations, and please share your thoughts.
Well, Helio, thank you so much for hosting Mark and me to join you for this episode of BIX Tech TV. We sincerely appreciate the opportunity to share our perspectives with your audience. So regarding your question about how purpose can be a differentiator in today's world, here are three perspectives to inform your viewers and their teams. The three perspectives are around definition, force, and number three, performance. So from a definitional perspective, my colleagues and I at the Brentwood Advisory Group define organizational purpose as the outcomes of a mission. And its purpose is to complement, no pun intended, and its purpose is to complement vision and values of an organization. Interestingly, when I discuss this topic with leaders, many believe they are already purpose-driven, for they define purpose as what they do, which is their organization's mission. Organizational purpose is what inspires others to realize their fullest potential, and it stimulates research-proven advantages, such as in Forbes, they reported that consumers are 4 to 6 times more likely to purchase, protect, and champion purpose-driven organizations. And the Harvard Business Review referenced studies reporting that 90% of employees who work at companies with a strong sense of purpose say they are more inspired, motivated, and loyal. So that's number one around definition. Number two, around force. Organizational purpose is a powerful force that empowers organizations to navigate disruptive forces and create enduring value. It's one of the most important attributes that drives stakeholder engagement, employee performance, and importantly, results. Another statistic from the Harvard Business Review says that 77% of consumers who are motivated to purchase from companies are committed to making the world a better place. So that's number two, around force. Part number three is around performance. Organizations that align their sense of purpose with strategy outperform others. And Ernst & Young, one of the big four accounting firms, reported that organizations that align strategy with purpose outperform others by 10%. This research confirmed that organizational purpose empowers leaders to create lasting legacies by inspiring stakeholders such as employees, board members, donors, customers, consumers, and partners to realize their fullest potential. As you know, most organizations are resource constrained and are challenged by disruptive forces, such as from technology, big data, analytics, distributed talent digitization and automation, convergence of cyber-physical worlds, and demographic shifts. As these demographic shifts and disruptive forces create new and evolving engagement options that influence preferences, stakeholders prefer to engage with purpose-driven organizations. And 73% of investors state that efforts to improve their environment and society contribute to their investment decisions. Helio, I hope these three perspectives help set the table for our conversation with Mark and you.
Oh, they sure do. That's a very powerful perspective, Henry. Thank you for sharing. And Mark, what are your thoughts on how being a purpose-driven organization can create an effective and strong culture?
Yeah, well, first of all, Henry, I thought your comments were great. And even though I reviewed them with you just hearing it a second time, I learned a lot listening to you, and I'm sure the audience will as well. So I thank you so much for sharing that. Purpose-driven culture is a unifying framework, and it's a unifying framework that's conducive to building a strong and effective culture, because what it does as a unifying framework is it coordinates interests and efforts. That's one of the traits of a strong and effective culture. It also aligns and integrates work, the second trait of a strong and effective culture. And that coordination of interests and efforts and that alignment and integration of work produces high degrees of adaptability, a third trait of a strong and effective culture. And then organizations can leverage that high degree of adaptability to continuously fulfill purpose, even in an environment of uncertainty and disruptive change, produce enduring success. So in very simple terms, a purpose-driven organization creates a culture of discipline in which everyone has the same job. And what's that job? That job is to work together interdependently as one to fulfill purpose.
Excellent, excellent take on that too, Mark. At this point, let's shift to another critical pillar of our talk today, and that also contributes to success, which is total capital management. So, Mark, can you expand a little bit more on that and share your perspectives?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. Well, just like purpose, total capital management is also a unifying framework. And again, similar to purpose, it unifies people's efforts so they do work as one, of course, to fulfill purpose, but in addition, to fulfill purpose in ways where they always maximize firm level net present value and investor wealth while making a positive impact on the overall economy, environment, and society. So in a nutshell, total capital management integrates purpose and value creation so they become mutually reinforcing, one enabling the other. Now, to achieve this, you have to manage your organization as the firm's most powerful and enduring competitive advantage. I'm sure we've all heard the saying over the years, great organizations are the ones in which ordinary people can achieve extraordinary results. Well, total capital management equips business leaders to build and manage these great organizations, which we call SuperOrgs. Now, to contrast total capital management with traditional management, which is siloed and intradisciplinary and focuses on what's different about capital. And what's different about capital is the type. Conversely, total capital management is seamless, and rather than intradisciplinary, it's interdisciplinary and focuses on what's the same about capital, which is the process. So regardless of what type of capital you're talking about, whether it's financial capital, whether it's human capital, whether it's information capital, intellectual property capital, relational capital, or material capital, regardless of the type of capital, all right, regardless of the type of capital, the process is the same. And the process is the formation of that capital, the allocation of that capital, the utilization, and as needed, the dynamic reallocation of that capital. So the total capital management equips business leaders to manage that process for all types of capital at the level of excellence that's necessary to fulfill purpose and maximize value creation.
Excellent views as well. Total capital management is a subject that really inspires me to think on how this digital transformation is happening and how this can be a driver for our organizations as well. And I see that both a purpose-driven organization and total capital management are basic guiding frameworks. Henry, can you share your thoughts on how these two align, or are there any conflict of interest between these two? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks so much, Helio. I'm going to hit the second part of your question first and then go back to the first one. I think there actually can be some competing forces when you think about TCM or total capital management or organizational purpose. The conflict arises within the context of stakeholder priorities. Now, if you think about defining stakeholders, in my previous answer, I talked about employees, board members, partners, vendors, suppliers, etc. That list actually can get much more complicated when you introduce elected officials, such as state governors, country officials, federal officials, things of that nature. And an organization cannot serve all stakeholders equally. So let me repeat that. An organization cannot serve all stakeholders equally. They can attempt to, but at the end of the day, every resource is limited in its capacity to influence outcomes. So that's kind of an interesting conflict that all leaders need to deal with as they influence their organization. But as far as the alignment piece, I think there's much more stronger alignment opportunities than there are opportunities for disconnect. So as Mark mentioned, total capital management can be a very strong unifying force, just like organizational purpose can be. That helps leaders and their teams focus on key outcomes that align with their strategic priorities. So if you have total capital management, organizational purpose, the strategy, and then you overlay that with stakeholder priorities, that's where these unifying frameworks come into power. So at Brentwood, the company I work with, my colleagues and I developed what we call the TCPS approach. TCPS, that approach that amplifies the value of total capital management. Interesting, they both start with TC. Yeah, just a coincidence. So TCPS stands for Teams, Customers, Products, and Strategy. Teams, Customers, Products, and Strategy. 4 very simple words that are very complex. And you can actually have PhDs in each one of those 4. So I'm not trying to simplify the complex or make it sound like the complex are simple. I am trying to simplify the complex, actually. Our view is that great results start with strong, well-aligned teams, the T. And this is where organizational purpose is implemented at the front of the show. When we help teams deepen their understanding of customers' motivations, the customers are more satisfied and the teams are more empowered. So again, that's the TC, the teams and the customers. We then collaboratively shape the development of high impact strategies, the S, that thoughtfully deliver incredible value for all stakeholders across functional teams. So again, T is teams, C is customers, P is products, and S is strategies. So we focus on aligning the team's perspectives around customers' motivations and developing products and services through well-informed, intentionally developed strategies that create incredible value. Therefore, by combining organizational purpose via our TCPS approach and in concert with total capital management, governing boards and senior leaders and leaders across an organization can create and deliver incredible economic profit and long-term value for all stakeholders that are engaged with the organization. Thanks, Mark, for the opportunity to opine on a great question.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that knowledge and wisdom. I think it's going to be of great value to our audience.
Certainly. I would like to bring some technology into this conversation now. As you know, at BIX Tech, we help companies implement solutions based on AI, big data, really automate processes using these technologies. And what you guys have been talking about also has a lot to do with the processes that are the new processes that are built to support both the purpose-driven organization, total capital management. So, Mark, I would like to ask you what's your view on how these technologies can help you achieve a total capital management model?
Well, I think that what I would like to start off with is with a don't and a do related to the technology, because I think we've learned over the years that when organizations fail, it's not because of technological failure, it's because of management failure. So I think it's important to make sure that we understand the role of technology relative to management. First, make sure you have a well-designed management system that even without technology is going to enable you to fulfill purpose and maximize value creation. And then you'd say, okay, now let's carefully select technology that's going to enable us to do that a lot better than we could without it. So the don't have data and AI projects. And I'm hearing a lot of that. And not surprisingly, I'm also hearing research that says a lot of those projects where technology is in the foreground and business is in the background, if at all, are not creating value. In fact, they're destroying value. So you want to avoid that. And the way you avoid that is don't have data and AI projects, have net present value business projects, which include data and artificial intelligence as an enablers of success of those business projects. And Helio, your comment hit the nail on the head when you said that data and AI are transformative tools that enhance organizational operations and decision-making. So to use your term, we're saying, so we're going to have a project to improve organizational operations and business decision-making, and then we're going to involve data and AI only as needed to optimize our success. Now, another, I think, indicator of making sure you're using technology successfully goes back to conversations we've had in the past about the upstream downstream relationship between organizational maturity and data maturity. Remember those conversations where we said, look, let's use total capital management to optimize organizational maturity so that the organization and the people working in those organizations are smarter, faster, and stronger, so that they can do a great job maturely managing data and artificial intelligence to create value as opposed to destroy value, which unfortunately, as I already indicated, seems to be the norm rather than the exception. So I also want to bring in the wisdom of management guru Russell Akoff in terms of how to manage technology effectively to optimize our shared goals of fulfilling purpose while maximizing value creation. And Russell said something which I thought was very interesting. He said, too much irrelevant information. So too much irrelevant information is a bigger problem for business than not enough relevant information. And then related to that, he also said that an ounce of information is worth a pound of data, and an ounce of knowledge is worth a pound of information. So the total capital management level of organizational maturity creates that knowledge, what we call profound knowledge, which goes back to the purpose, the unifying framework of both TCM and a purpose-driven organization. That profound knowledge is what people need, so they say, yes, we do all have the same job, which is to work interdependently as one to fulfill purpose and maximize value creation. And total capital management's level of maturity provides the knowledge that's needed to both identify and extract those significant few drops of information that are out there in that ocean of data. So think about that. You now have organizational knowledge, what we often call innate intelligence, which is a huge complement to artificial intelligence. This innate intelligence of profound knowledge, so that people can say, you know what, we're going to screen out most of that data, what what Akoff called that irrelevant information. Keep that out of our organization. So we're not spending time, money, and effort managing data, meaningless information that if it's not going to create value, and therefore it's probably going to destroy value because we're spending time, money, and effort on it and not getting a return on investment. We're going to filter that out, but only filter in the significant few drops of data that represent value creating information and leverage our knowledge to apply that information against value creating processes to achieve the two goals we've been talking about in this whole session: fulfilling purpose while maximizing value creation.
Yes, Mark, I really think it's interesting and insightful, your distinction between data, information, and profound knowledge. Really, we live in everything we do, all the processes, all the interactions produce data that may produce some insightful information or may be a distraction. And it is part of our job, help companies identify and prioritize what is the relevant information to act upon. And with that, I'd like to ask Henry, what are your thoughts, Henry, on the future, especially of AI in business?
Well, I've got many thoughts there. Before I answer your question, Helio, I wanted to build on Mark's comments with regards to the relationship between data, information, and knowledge. I believe there's actually 5 levels of this. So Mark mentioned, if you drew a pyramid, Mark mentioned data, information, and knowledge. And I'll tell you the next two in a second, but this is based on my service as an infantry officer and an intelligence officer in the Marine Corps way back in the day. Mm-hmm. When my teams and I were in Central America, we were in Asia, Southeast Asia, and we were also in Africa. And the military and the government actually uses Mark's framework, but adds the two more. So data, there's tons of data. Mark said a pound of data is worth an ounce of information, and you keep on going. Information is worth goes to knowledge, but knowledge actually becomes insights, and insights becomes intelligence.
Exactly.
Okay, so if you think about how this conversation around technology and frameworks, and now we're going to get into AI, there's actually 5 levels of, I'm just going to call it information, so to speak. But you got data that becomes information, information becomes knowledge, knowledge becomes insights, and insights becomes intelligence. And I say that because Mark and I have worked with boards, we've served on boards. I've worked with thousands of corporate directors and boards and higher education boards over the last 15 years. And board members want intelligence. Now, they want to be intelligent as well. But at the end of the day, they're not looking for data. They're not looking for information. They're not looking for knowledge. They're looking for insights. And from insights, they can glean the intelligence to make the best, most impactful, strategic decisions possible to influence the future of their organizations. So that's just a little bit of summary to build on Mark's great points around intel, or information and knowledge, etc. So you asked me a question, Helio, about AI and how's that going to impact the future of AI in business? Or what's the future of AI in business? Well, the short way is a lot. Now, I know you want more than just an answer of a lot. So just like organizational purpose and total capital management, AI is a powerful force to be reckoned with. It's a powerful force to be reckoned with. Most companies, from small nonprofits to large multinational corporations and governments, are leveraging the power of generative AI fueled by large language models that have been around for decades. So this is not necessarily new. Well, the large language models are not new. The kind of the overlay of generative AI, is relatively new. But it's a powerful force And these organizations, again, governments, corporations, nonprofits, they're leveraging generative AI and the large language models to deliver incredible value for all stakeholders. So remember I said before in your previous question, Helio, that there is a disconnect sometimes because no organization can solve and serve all stakeholders' demands equally. That's just not possible. But with the power of AI, they can elevate the value that they deliver for all stakeholders. So let me get into that a little bit here. So whether an organization is in B2B or B2C or some combination of the two, AI is transforming how consumers and customers and teams extract, utilize, and deliver more value faster. So back to this pyramid, how do they extract, how do they assess the data to create information, knowledge, insights, and intelligence? They can do that faster. And you all know that you can put anything into ChatGPT and get a great answer within 5 seconds. That is incredible power. Okay, so while in the short term, AI is viewed by many as a disruptive force, it can be a force multiplier. So I ask your viewers, Helio, to not think about AI as a disruptive force, but think about it as a force multiplier for all stakeholders to generate more productivity gains unlike ever before. And I know most organizations are already doing that and realizing that. But here's 3 key factors I believe should be thought of, considered, and utilized to ensure AI is used appropriately. Number 1, I believe all leaders need to ensure that their AI-based tools and technologies, again, to Mark's point, we need business projects that have AI and tech, not AI and tech projects. But all leaders need to ensure that AI-based tools and technologies produce value-creating and ethical outcomes.
Yes.
Value-creating, ethical outcomes. You may have heard about this term called AI hallucination. And if you haven't heard about it, just Google it or whatever, and you'll figure it out. That means basically your AI tool making up stuff that is not accurate. And we need to make sure that generative AI tools and these that are overlay their large language models create value and ethical perspective. So that's from a leadership perspective. Number 2, this is from an educational perspective. I believe educators need to infuse AI into their curriculum, starting in kindergarten. Now, by the way, when I say educators, you can have traditional schools and college educators, and you also have educators in a corporate and government environment, because every organization is working to elevate the proficiency of their students, whether it's a kindergarten teacher or a CEO of a multinational corporation, and they're trying to educate their employees. They may not call them students, but at the end of the day, educators need to infuse AI into every curriculum, starting in kindergarten and all the way through, because AI is changing the workforce of the future. It already has, and will continue to do so. It is creating the need for jobs that do not even exist today. Mm-hmm. And when you think about what educators do, educators transfer incredible amounts of knowledge and perspective, and they have their own pyramid around data, information, knowledge, insights, and intelligence. But educators haven't served, and this is not a negative, because these jobs don't exist. Educators have not served in jobs that don't exist. Nobody has. Nobody has. And so that's it can be viewed as. Remember I said AI can be a disruptive force. It can be viewed as a force multiplier. View it as a force multiplier and realize that jobs don't exist today. Therefore, it's impossible to teach people about jobs that don't exist. But it is possible to teach people about how to think, to collaborate, and to form strategies and plans that create value, no doubt about it. So number 3, I believe employees need to be trained on how to incorporate AI into value-creating jobs. and they should not be intimidated by the power of AI that may eventually replace many jobs, including their own jobs. So I realize that AI can be intimidating. But again, instead of viewing it as a disruptive force, I encourage people to view AI as a force multiplier and learn how it can help them make their jobs and be more efficient and proficient. So I'm going to wrap this part up by saying, get on the train, because it's already left the station. So you better jump to the next train station, get on the train as fast as you possibly can, because you don't want to be left behind. So Mark, I hope that those perspectives address your question appropriately. But again, this, I said leaders have a role, educators have a role, and employees have a role. Let's make sure that these generative AI tools produce ethical results. Let's make sure that everybody's learning how to use it at its best to benefit everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, and Henry, I love that term, force multiplier.
Yeah.
That's just, as opposed to disruptive force. I think it's a much more positive view. And
so I'm going to end this section here, Mark, since you said it's a positive view. My mother taught me a lot of things, and I know we're off the script here a little bit, Helio, but my mother taught me a lot of things. One of them was PMA. I'm a big one on threes. You've heard me already talk about, I got 3 things to say. Well, PMA is 3 things. Positive mental attitude. People can control one thing in their life. Literally, people control one thing in their life, and that's their attitude. So I believe that people should have a positive mental attitude towards life. It can be hard, no doubt about it. Helio, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure, and your words resound very closely to what we are experiencing in the marketplace. As you know, we're involved with many different projects in the AI big data space, and most of them we're helping people be more productive, and be more, and its processes being more efficient. What I see that is an inspiration for all these projects is to take the purpose perspective and the total capital management perspective to drive these objectives, to drive how we would like people to be more productive, in what direction, with what general guidelines. So any other thoughts, Mark and Henry, before we close?
My only thought would be I learned a lot listening to Henry and Helio. Your comments I thought set a nice framework for hopefully what the audience considers to be a productive conversation. So I just feel blessed and honored to be invited to participate, and I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did.
Yeah. Helio, I echoing Mark's points, I thank you so much for the opportunity to join you today. You did ask a question, and I know I already went off the grid about PMA and my mother, etc., who was an amazing person. I'd leave our audience with a question or a suggestion. Ask your leader and their leaders, so wherever they are in the food chain of an organization, ask their leaders what their organizational purpose is. And if that leader answers the question in the context of the mission of the organization, I would say, can we have a conversation about that? Because I heard these people talk the other day on this video that said that organizational purpose isn't what we do. Now, let me give you a couple examples, and I'll try to wrap it up in 30 seconds. So here's 3 different examples, because I love threes. Number 1, Jamie Dimon, the chairman, CEO of JP Chase. He talks about organizational purpose for JP Morgan as to empower dreams. Okay. He doesn't talk about financial instruments. He doesn't talk about capital. He doesn't talk about loans and banking and all that, which is what they do. That's their mission. He talks about empowering dreams, Because whether you're buying a company, buying a car, buying a piece of clothing, whatever, or whatever you're going to dinner, you need money to do things. And so he talked about empowering dreams. One of our clients is a manufacturing company, and their CEO says, our purpose is happy customers. Now, very different than Jamie Dimon about, because you can kind of correlate money and empowering dreams. The reason he says our purpose is happy customers is because that company happens to be in the pump business. And they make pumps that pump oil out of the ground from oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico. So you think about how big and powerful those pumps are. The last thing the CEO wants to hear from a customer is that the pump broke or the pump's not working. That is a very unhappy customer. So he uses the definition of organizational purpose as happy customers with his teams and his plant members, because he empowers them to hit the stop button if they see something not going right, because the last thing they want is an unhappy customer that doesn't have a pump pumping oil out of the ground. And the third example is very, very simple. Ben and Jerry's. Their mission, or excuse me, their organizational purpose is to make the best damn ice cream in the world. Now, that is kind of mission oriented, no doubt about it. They make ice cream, but they say our purpose is to make the best ice cream on the planet. So I share that with you, your audience, 3 examples, 3 very different organizations. And I ask your audience to ask their leaders, what is our organizational purpose? And if, for example, if they work on a college or something and they say, well, our purpose is to educate people, I would say, let's keep having a conversation. Mm-hmm. I hate to say somebody's wrong, but I have a different view. We believe that organizational purpose is the outcome of the mission. Thank you, Helio.
Thank you. Henry, on that note, I did ask our CEO, what is our organizational purpose? And he told me that it is to bring positive impact to the world through data. And that has been an inspiration to us.
Right.
Guys.
So let me just ask you, here's a suggestion. You go back. This is both for you and for your audience. When your CEO says it's to, I forget what you just said, transform, bring inspiration through data and all that.
Positive impact to the world through data.
Here's the second step. So that's a hypothesis, okay? I would say the second step is to assess that with your stakeholders, employees, customers, partners, vendors, suppliers. Hey, we think our organizational purpose is this. Is that inspiring to you? Does that help you want to buy more from us at a higher price? More frequently, all that kind of stuff. And if the answers are resoundingly yes, say it over and over and over. Not just when you ask the CEO, but it needs to be infused in everything you do, through every channel, through every meeting, et cetera, et cetera. You can tell I get a little bit excited about this topic because it's incredibly important. And I said at the beginning, it's a powerful force. Thank you.
Sure is. It's very good to be learning so much. Guys, thank you very much. I'd like to also thank our audience and ask you to please follow us on our social media and come back to our next episode of BIX Tech. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you, and bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.